Basically, as I say, take a very much partner approach with our customers, working very closely with them, identifying their needs, and then customizing where appropriate the solution of iPlanet to ensure that they can land it effectively. We get lots of learnings from our customers, as you can imagine. Some of them very small, some of them very large, some of them complex in nature, delivering lots of different services. So yeah, we get our eyes open to lots of stuff, which is good because it means then we can use those learnings with other customers as well and share those learnings where appropriate. The team that I work with, or the client-facing team, if you like, and all of us have worked in the sector. So we've either been responsible individuals for the services or registered managers or some sort of role within the care sector. That enables us to bring a lot of value add as well as what we learn from other customers as well. We have, as I said, rolled out iPlanet to small and big organizations across many geographies. And yeah, we're very much a value-driven organization, which really sort of talks to enabling providers like yourselves to evidence the value that you're bringing to the table for the people that are using your services. Obviously, a big driver in inclusion, making sure that the people that you're supporting obviously are being included in everything that they should be included in. And we know that we've seen a lot of that around the Assistive Decision Making Capacity Act that was brought into play earlier in the year at last. And so that was good to see, but a big focus on inclusion. Also within iPlanet, you'll see there's a lot of transparency and accountability, really being transparent about the service that are being delivered, and also then putting that level of accountability in place to ensure that the people that you're supporting are being supported and cared for in the fashion that they wish to be cared for. So that's just a little bit about iPlanet. As I say, today's focus is primarily around the whole area of risk management. And I'm sure all of you will at this stage have seen and read the latest HICWA report that was published just a couple of weeks ago around the regulations of the disability services. And as you know, there was, well, as you can see here, there was just over 1,300 inspections, and that was across about 1,478 services in that sector. And as you see, 30% were announced and the rest were unannounced. One of the things, or a couple of the things, I suppose you would say, is that the report highlighted many organizations achieving many great things and enabling the people that they support, to achieve great things. And it was lovely to read those snippets and positive stories of those achievements that were being made. But on the other side of the coin, if you like, there was a growing number of providers that actually needed help around really governance and also around risk management. And I suppose one of the things you can see here, even from a governance perspective, you can see the comparison. 2021, there was 71% odd compliant around overall compliance, and then it slipped down to 62 or 63% there, as you can see. And then the yellow indicating that 18.9% in 2021 was nearly compliant or substantially compliant, and then 9.7 not compliant. And similarly for those numbers in 2022, you can see there on the chart. So it's interesting to see the slide. And I suppose looking at the report, you probably saw, as I did, that the inspectors found that in many situations, really the non-compliance was largely a result probably of, reduced oversight of the centres, because of the pandemic restrictions that were in place. And people were very dependent on doing that from a distance. So it was more of an issue that they're going to focus on now with providers as well, because these areas have remained, unfortunately, high in the wrong direction. So, however, what they did say is things have started to improve in the latter part of 2022 in these areas. So, as I say, it's not all doom and gloom. So, as I said, many providers providing great service and very compliant, however, some needing some support. So that's why we thought we would run this session today. Just the next slide then, you can see here, particularly around the risk management side of things, you can see that Regulation 26, you can see risk management procedures designated for adults. You can see there was 60% compliant, 28.3 substantially compliant, and 12 not compliant. Okay, that was for designated. And then you can see, obviously, from a congregated setting point of view and from community Now, we know that there's been a big drive to move away from the congregated settings, and many of you have been involved, as I was when I was in the Croft. We had very much a congregated setting, and then we moved away and went into more of a supported living setting, which was more meaningful for the individuals that we were supporting. But you can see here the trend, unfortunately, is not going in the right direction. And they very much link, largely this due to the pandemic. And but that this regulation requires providers to have risk frameworks in place that provide reliable information that ensures that the risk to residents is minimized, and where things do go wrong, that the provider identifies in a timely manner and respond to those risks as they're being identified. Obviously, the risk management system should allow for the ongoing assessment and management of any risks that have been identified. And while risks management arrangements should protect residents from actual and potential harm, they should also support residents to take positive risk. And that's the big change, I suppose. And to recognize their rights to make choices about how they want to live their lives. So that's, I suppose, a big change over the last number of years that everybody has striving towards. The next slide here, many would believe there's a correlation between compliance in Regulation 5 and compliance in Regulation 26. So obviously Regulation 26 is around the risk assessment, and then Regulation 5 is around individual assessment and personal plans. Unfortunately, there's been a drop, as you can see, in compliance in relation to this as well, and in particular in the congregated settings areas. But one thing we have to bear in mind is that this was in a period where we were coming out of the pandemic, and obviously things were harder to manage, and maybe this accounts for some of the decline that we can see in these particular areas on the chart here. So needless to say, in the HICWA report, they said obviously there will be continued focus in this area as they go and do their inspections going forward as well. So in light of all of this, I suppose what we want to do is just to spend a little bit of time looking at risk management and then look at how iPlanet can help in that area, basically. So managing risk, the importance of it. Why? Well, and I know you're all very familiar with this possibly, but obviously it's no harm to remind ourselves of the importance of managing risk. It's obviously crucial in disability services for very important reasons, and I've listed some of them down here. Service users' safety and well-being, obviously. Individuals with disabilities have unique vulnerabilities and needs, so it's important to have proper risk management that ensures that potential hazards and dangers are identified and mitigated, reducing the likelihood of those accidents happening, injuries, or harm to the service users themselves. Obviously, then, staff are very important in this space. Adequate risk management is not just about the service users, obviously, but it's also about protecting the well-being of staff members. Implementing those safety protocols and procedures can help prevent workplace injuries and also improve staff morale and the job satisfaction of each of the individuals. Then we have the legal and ethical responsibilities. Service providers, as we know, have legal and ethical obligations to provide a duty of care to the service users, and by managing risks, demonstrate their commitment to fulfilling these responsibilities and ensuring that the protection of the service users' rights and dignity itself. Then we have the reputation and trust of the organisation that's providing those services. Effective risk management helps build the trust with service users and their families and within the community itself. Providers that provide safety and quality care are more likely to be seen as reliable and have a reputable service providers, a good reputation in that area, in that market. And we have obviously the compliance with regulations. Obviously, managing risk helps organizations to stay compliant within the HICWA regulations, or whether it's from the commissioning bodies themselves, and it avoids potential legal and financial repercussions for any non-compliance that might be identified. Then we've got the financial stability. Failing to manage risks can lead to costly incidents or damage to property and equipment. Implementing risk management strategies can help protect the organization's financial stability by reducing the likelihood of such occurrences. And there can be a lot of hidden costs as well associated with these, so it's important that as risks, trends of incidents are monitored, that you can reduce those risks happening in the future. Then you've got the continuous improvement. Risk management obviously involves analysing the incidents and near misses to identify those areas that actually need improvement. This process allows providers to learn from the past experience and implement preventative measures, continuously enhancing the quality of their services. Many insurance requirements are put on organizations, and many providers are required to have liability insurance, obviously. So effective risk management can help providers secure favorable insurance terms and premiums. And this has been seen in the past. And then obviously long-term sustainability of the services. Providers that generally prioritize risk management are most likely to be sustainable in the long term. By minimizing risks and ensuring high quality services, they're better positioned to attract clients, secure funding, and maintain support from their stakeholders that are supporting them. So overall, as you can see, managing risk in the disability sector is an essential aspect for providing safe, high quality services to enable the people supported to live fulfilling lives. So it's obviously key. So then, Spirico's vision to contribute to the continuous evolution of the social care sector by putting supported people at the heart of their services, the circle of support in their communities. The development of iPlanet, why the company exists, and what we're trying to achieve has always been about moving the dial. And what we mean by that is basically by helping people to move from the traditional time and task, which we can see on the left-hand side here, and lots of organizations have already done this, obviously, because it's been happening over the last number of years. But we want to support further to build upon person-centered, outcomes-focused approaches and take it a step further to what we call potential centered planning here to the extreme right. Traditional time and task approaches would be generic, obviously, in nature. As you can see, it would be generally have a menu of care and support that providers would have provided in the past, and you would just choose from those. In many cases, they were institutionalized and in congregated settings. And I know lots of people have gone away from that and are continuing to get away from it. And so by nature of the delivery of service, it was very much provider-centric rather than person-centric. And I suppose the services tend to be very input focused, with the focus on measuring how good a service was by how much time you were spending and what you were doing as a provider. They tended to be very deficit based, with discussions about what somebody can't do versus what they can do. And obviously the sector has moved on to more of a person-centered approach, as we all know, and that's been a big focus over the last years, and being focused, planning personalized around the person. And it's just not a generic service that everybody gets. Instead, it's a service that's very bespoke to the person to become more independent. It's a place where they can do great things. It's a greater focus on their strengths and to build on those. And it's moving away from input and then looking at outcomes. We tend to describe it as moving on from input to impact. So it's not just doing things, but it's looking at the impact that those things are having. And then moving the dial further, if you like, we go on to the extreme right here on the chart, where we're talking about reaching that potential centered planning, going beyond personalized care and support to self-directed, letting the person who is receiving the service direct how they want it and what goals that they want to achieve, etc. And going beyond that independence orientated to relationship orientated, whether that be relationship with their support workers or their supportive circle or their family and their friends, or whether it's in the local community or education, or whether it's work setting. It's the next step beyond independence. It's really putting the person truly at the center of what they want to achieve. So the key one for us, and the most important part of the dial, is going from a strength-based approach to a potential-based approach. And today we're focusing on one component of this, which is really the traditional approaches were often very risk averse and going to risk aware. We'll talk about making that shift. And what we mean, as you can see, by risk averse, traditionally we'd have the time and task in the past. You would start with a risk assessment here, as you can see. Then you would fill in the control measures, assessing the risk for what the person against, focusing on what they can't do versus identifying the risk, focusing on what they can't, with everything being too risky. That was, many times that would have been the mindset of people say, oh no, that would be too risky, that would be too dangerous for the person or whatever. That was generally the thinking. But yet then control measures are then implemented, which informs the support plan, and ultimately we may identify some outcomes. So that generally was the way in the past. But if you start off by deciding what a person can't do, you're immediately reducing the number of outcomes that they can achieve, which puts barriers in place to breaking that chain. Control measures then become inherently restrictive, which feeds into your support planning. So with each step along the process, you are ultimately reducing their potential. So you were really, or we were in the past, starting off from a negative perspective rather than from a positive perspective. So rather than being risk averse, then it's going to be risk aware approach. And it's really the reverse. It's putting the outcomes first and making sure that what is being sought, what the person wants to achieve, is what you start with. A goal that they want to achieve, such as learning to make maybe a cup of tea, or to use a computer, or to live more independently. Whatever the outcomes might be, these are their outcomes. It could be a goal outcome, it could be a health outcome, it could be a prevention outcome, whatever the nature of the outcome it is. And then we look at what the person wants to do, and we build the support plan around that. And once you've established how to support somebody to achieve their goals and how they want to be supported, then we assess the risk and build the control measures around that risk. So by taking this approach, you've already decided what they can and want to do. This is a risk aware and less restrictive, which ultimately enables people supported to achieve greater things and their life's full potential, if you like. So it's a very different approach, which I know many of you are already following now, and ensuring that the person is enabled to achieve those goals that they thought weren't possible previously. So risk management, in summary, before we come to the iPlanet tool itself, and where I can give you an insight to how you can use it. Benefits for risk management. Obviously, for the participant or the person that's supporting themselves, risk management is very specific to them, obviously, because you're focusing in on it, and you'll see that in the plan when we go to it. It's specific to their support plan, and it's specific to their desired outcomes that they want to achieve. So it's very much centered around the person, obviously. And then for the provider itself, it means that their service will remain person-centered and outcome-focused. And support can still be planned and delivered safely. And for the longer term, this prevents incidents and accidents while maintaining and evidencing compliance with the standards that are HICWA and maybe your commissioning bodies require you to adhere to. So it really benefits all, and also it promotes a culture of positive risk taking to achieve life's potential. Everything in life is worth doing, and there's always an element of risk. However, the rewards may outweigh that risk, and therefore it's worth pursuing. So promoting the culture ultimately enables people supported to achieve their individual outcomes and goals. So a big shift, but that's the way I know many organizations like yourselves have gone and are pursuing, and ultimately to enable the individuals to achieve their goals and dreams. So they are the slides that I'm going to conclude with, and I'm going to switch over now to the iPlanet tool itself. So you can see my details. If you do have any questions, you can email me. You can see my email address there. Do reach out to me, and we can have a chat offline if needed. And if this is something that you're interested to pursue, I'd be certainly happy to have a chat with you. So without further ado, I'm going to switch over to the tool itself.